Happy Friday and welcome back to Drinking by Myself. This is the show where I drink wine by myself and go through all of my successes and usually mostly failures of the previous month. At the beginning of this month, I recorded a video talking about all of the books I was so sure I would have time to read, and now I'm going to go and react to it and let you know how well I did. Oh, and there's a whole system with like getting points and stuff, but you'll pick it up as you go along. And if you don't, go back and watch the first one where I explain it. I'll link it below. Hit me with your best shot. Hello and welcome back to Drinking by Myself. My name is Emma and today I'm going to be going through my first TBR of the year. This is my January TBR, all the books I want to be reading this month. And it's a little bit different than usual because it involves a lot of non-fiction about one subject. You might have heard of Veganuary. I don't know really how to pronounce that. Veganuary, we're going with. But basically this is just a month about going vegan. Full disclaimer, I will not be going vegan in January. I'm not ready for this change yet, but it's something that I have really wanted to do for a long time. And one of my New Year's resolutions was that I would go vegan by the end of 2018. Okay, that is hilarious because as you may know by watching the last few videos I posted, I have in fact gone vegan. I did in fact make that change. It can't have been more than like a week after filming that video. So, joke's on you, Past Emma, I'm better than you think I am. I will do it at some point this year. But before I dive in, because I've tried before diving straight in and going vegan and it didn't work for me, I found that I was barely eating anything at all because I couldn't figure out what to eat. It wasn't very healthy for me. So this time what I want to do is really properly educate myself on veganism, and then I will be ready at some point this year, fingers crossed, to take the plunge and actually make this change. Thank you. So, as a good way to start that education journey, the first 3 books that I will be reading in Veganuary are 3 non-fiction books about animal rights and about veganism. These are The Pig Who Sang to the Moon by Jeffrey Masson, which is about farm animals and their emotional lives. Okay, so I didn't actually get around to reading that one, and I'm not sure anymore that I'm going to because I've heard like kind of mixed things about it, and I already went vegan, so I guess I don't need it anymore. But for the purposes of this game, that is a -2 points. Animal Liberation by Peter Singer. This is, I think, a philosophical approach to the animal rights movement. I did read that. I didn't read it start to finish because this was the second one I'd read and I had already gone vegan, so it was kind of like preaching to the choir. So I read probably most of it. I read like extracts. I kind of skipped the chapters that I wanted. Thought it was absolutely fascinating, really interesting, thought-provoking, slightly controversial questions in there, which I just really enjoyed thinking about. So I get 1 point for partly reading it. And Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer, which I've had recommended to me. I have read his fiction stuff before and I really like him as a writer, so I'm interested to know what he has to say on this topic. Yes, so that was the big one. I did read that one start to finish. I absolutely devoured it, fucking loved it. It turned me vegan like straight away. So yeah, that's a 2 points for me and a 5 out of 5 points for that book. I'm feeling a little nervous about reading these books, that I'll find them upsetting, but I'm mainly actually excited about that because I'm really looking forward to fully understanding veganism and the reasons for it because I think it'll really propel me forward. I'll also be reading them probably quite slowly because I'm not the fastest reader when I'm reading non-fiction, but I'm excited for what I'm going to learn. Now on to the new releases I'm going to be reading this month. I am currently reading 3 Things About Elsie by Joanna Cannon, and I would like to finish this one by the end of this month. It comes out any minute now, I think. By the time you're watching it, it's probably already come out. Yeah, it has come out, and I did read it, and I loved it. It was such a sad, sweet story. Really recommend that one. So that's 2 points for that. I've definitely talked about that more in another video, so I can't remember which video I talked about it in, but I'll link to it if you want to hear more about it. And I will also be reading Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, which is a collection of essays that comes out in February, so I would like to have read it before then. Yes, I did read that. I didn't finish it. I got to like 60% of the way through, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I think that Dolly Alderton is a fantastic writer. Memoir isn't really my favourite genre. I find it a touch self-indulgent, and I did find this one a little bit self-indulgent. Doesn't mean that I don't enjoy it. I think like if Dolly Alderton was one of my mates at the pub and she was telling me all of these like outrageous stories and life lessons, I would love it. Absolutely love that conversation. But when you're reading it on the page, she's a beautiful writer. She's, you know, the words are wonderful, but after about 60% I had already kind of got everything I was going to get from that. So that's 1 point for partly reading. And then finally, the last book on my January TBR I don't actually own yet. This is my book club that I have with my uni friends. We are going to be reading The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I think that's his name. I'm a little wary about this one because it's a fantasy book and I don't usually read fantasy, it's not usually my scene, but so far all of the books that we've read in our book club together we have had such a good time with, and they're such a great group of people to discuss books with that I'm always just excited to read the book, just because I'm looking forward to the conversations that we're going to have about it.
Okay, yeah, so I didn't finish that one. I did read quite a big chunk of it. I was just really not enjoying it. I knew I wasn't really keen on fantasy, and this did not do anything to change that for me, unfortunately. It's got really good reviews from lots of other people, but I found it so boring. Like, every time I picked it up, I thought I was going to fall asleep. I think that I still get my 1 point for reading it, because I did put effort into it. I'm only a little bit put off because some of the people in my book club were a little bit annoyed at me for not finishing it, but I think that's a bit unfair, because it's for fun. So yeah, I do get my point for trying, but I will not be returning to that book. I was not interested in that.
And, you know, it's always good to step outside your comfort zone into a genre that you don't really know anything about. Maybe I'll find that fantasy is my new favourite thing in the world. Who knows? Okay, so how did I do?
I would say that I did pretty well that time. I read, or attempted to read, almost all but one of the books I set out to do. That's the joy of having a not too long TBR. And my board is looking nicely back on track after last month's total fucking disaster. So that's all from me today. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and do leave me a comment letting me know what you're going to be reading in February. I'll see you at the end of next month. Well, I'll also see you next week because I upload every Friday, but I'll see you next month for another of these videos. Until then!